But in fact, it was them who said that, you know what, this is the age. If you want to do all of these things, if you want to explore, we don't want you to think at your age, at the age of 40, when you turn 40, to think that I had this chance and I did not go for it. So we want you to go and explore. This is your age to take all sorts of risks that you can. We are here to support you in every way possible.
From Unboxing Stories, this is Himalayan Diaries. I'm your host Ojas. Today we meet Swarada, an engineer turned trek leader. Her journey from childhood treks in the Sahyadris to becoming a pivotal force as a trek leader reflects a deep connection to the outdoors. Trekking taught her resilience and transformative experience as a trek leader fueled her passion for changing mindsets and promoting the true spirit of trekking. Join us as she shares her journey of seamlessly blending her engineering background with the meaningful career in the great outdoor. Welcome, Swarada, to Himalayan Diaries, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Ojas. This is really sweet of you. I really like. I had a big smile on my face while listening to my own introduction. Thank you. Very excited to be here. We don't often get to speak about our stories from the Himalayas, so I think it's a great platform.
Yeah, that's the point of this podcast, like bringing in the experiences from the mountains, from the outdoors in general, so that more and more people get inspired or get motivated to just explore outdoors. You are
Yes.
from Pune. What are the three treks that come to your mind around Pune that if someone says I have not done that trek, you are like, what? Seriously? What are such three treks that instantly come to your mind?
Hiking near Pune, I would say there are a few very obvious ones, but I wouldn't want to state them. For example, Sinhagad and Pratapgarh, all of these are very common, and that is something that everyone must visit. But in my opinion, having done a lot of treks in Sahyadri, I would say for me, top three are first one would be Ratangad. It's not near Pune, but it's in Sahyadri, so I think that should count. It's one of my most favorite and memorable trek experiences that I have ever had. It's tough. It's not very easy, but the sort of experiences that it offers, that is something very unique, and I really like it for that. So Ratangad number one. Then second would be Ghanagad. It is a very small hike, but it again has very different things. So, for example, there is this one huge rock that has fallen from one side of the fort, and it forms a cave. So you can really go and sit under that rock and sort of stay for a while in that cave. And I really enjoy that experience. So second would be Ghanagad. Third would be Korigad. It's one of the. It's again very easy, but it has. If you go in monsoon season, or especially, or even in winters for that matter, you will see three huge lakes on top of the fort,
Mhm.
and you can just sit beside those lakes, and after that you can actually take a big round around the fort when you're actually at the top. So you can go to each and every corner of the fort and cover all of that, and traverse the entire fort. So I like it for that reason. So I think these three would be my favorite treks.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to know how was growing up for you, and because I know you have been introduced to the outdoors at a very young age. You have been, as you are born and brought up in Pune, there are so many mountains around Pune, the Sahyadris. So how did the that part start? When was your first introduction, if you remember?
I don't remember my first ever trek. My mom tells me that I was only 7 months old when they took me to uh, Sinhagad, but that was through ropeway. So I don't remember exactly when. Oh, no, sorry. So this was Raigad because Sinhagad didn't have ropeway
Mhm.
at that time. So Raigad had ropeway. So they had taken me to Raigad when I was only what, 8, 9 months old. And she says that when we came back, I fell sick. So I was a baby. I was just a baby. So I have no memory of my first trek, but this is something that I've heard from my parents. And I think that is, after that, it just continued. My parents kept taking me, and even my sister. I have a younger sister, both of us, for treks. So honestly, more than all the luxurious vacations, we used to go for treks and such outdoor excursions more often. I remember spending most of my weekends on treks and forts and hills nearby. So it didn't have to really necessarily be a trek, because in and around Pune, you will see that you must be knowing that there are three main big hills right in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
So be it Vetal Tekdi or Hanuman Tekdi, Parvati, all these are big hills right in the middle of the city. And that is where we used to go even on weekdays, for that matter. So I have so many memories of going on these treks and these excursions as a child. And initially, I remember absolutely falling in love with the scenery that we would get to see once we reached the top. But later, I realized that it was much more than those sceneries. The sort of things that I would get after completing a trek, those things can't be compared to anything else. Trekking is something that I grew up with, and it is a very integral part of who I am. And my childhood was shaped because of trekking. To give you an example, I distinctly remember meeting my cousins from, they are from different state, and they came here, and then we were doing something, and something happened, and it was monsoon season here in Pune, and we were supposed to go out, and their immediate reaction was, no, it's raining, let's just stay indoors. And me and my sister were very opposite to that view, where we really wanted to go out and explore because it was raining. I immediately felt the difference in the sort of attitude that we had developed as children, just because the sort of experiences that we encountered during trekking. So it just made us much more resilient and much more comfortable to be uncomfortable. So I think that is something that I've noticed in me, even in my sister. I say it very proudly that it has become such an important part of who I am today.
Yeah. I can relate to the part that you said after doing a few treks, even if I go out somewhere and it starts raining, then what immediately comes to my mind is, okay, it's fine, I'll get wet and my clothes will get all wet, there will be some mud, but eventually I'm going to reach home or any place that I'm going to. And if it was a trek, it would have been so much worse than this. So it's okay. I think that's
Yeah.
that's the attitude that you get to experience when you do outdoor activities.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And the fact that you are assured that once you reach home, you have a dry set of clothes that you can put on. Whereas when you're on trek, you are trying to saving all the clothes from getting drenched in the rain.
Yeah. I I remember on one of the trek, Rupin Pass, I did last year. There is a river going on throughout the trek, and it was sort of a island was formed in the middle of the river, and it was a break, so everyone was waiting, and few of us we thought, hey, we can go at that center point in the center of river, but there was some water and there were rocks. So the only way to get there was to exactly step on those rocks and then go to that kind of island. But it was not a very deep water. It was just to your knee length. But the trick was to not get your socks and shoes wet. And two of the people in my group, they went successfully, and I was very tempted to do that. I stepped on the wrong foot. I stepped on the wrong stone, and my shoes, my socks, everything got wet. And I regretted that decision until the last day of trek, because on the trek, there is no way to uh, dry up your shoes or your socks. Already there was one pair which was
Absolutely.
already wet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the fun part of this podcast that I love this section. is
Okay.
where I call it a trek walkthrough, where
Mm-hmm.
you have to walk me and all the listeners through a trek right from the base camp to the last part, one of one of your favorite trek, other than the
Wow.
Arab Buyal.
Yeah. Other than
No,
that.
I'm kidding. You can choose the Arab Buyal as well, but
Okay.
uh, it has to be your favorite trek, and you have to describe the whole journey right from the start to the last point.
Okay. Okay. Let me decide which trek to choose. Okay, I have few treks in my mind. I think so. If you ask me my favorite trek, it is definitely Deorital Chandrashila because
Mhm.
it offers everything. If you want to see a lake on a trek, it offers that. If you want to walk through dense forest, you have that. If you want to climb a summit, a peak, you have that on this trek. If you want to sit near a river and dip your feet in cold water, you have that as well. So
Wow.
you basically have each and everything on this trek, and that is why this trek becomes very, very special. And I have been very fortunate to have witnessed this trek in different seasons.
Mhm.
And my favorite season for this trek has to be the spring season.
Mhm.
So now to start with, Sari is the base camp of this trek, and it's a very beautiful village, very tiny, but it has this perfect location where it's actually on a mountain slope, so it's not flat. Of course, many of the mountain villages are not on a flat land, so this is on a mountain slope, and right in front of you you get to see Chandrashila, the peak. So it's a huge peak, and there's this place called as Tunganath, so it's the highest Shiva temple that you
Mhm.
see just 1 kilometer below Chandrashila. You get to see that also. Not the temple, of course, from so far, but you get to see the peak. So that is the view from Sari. So there are so many farms, and they grow a lot of barley and wheat. So when you see it during sunrise or during sunset, during the golden hours, you actually get to see all those farms and fields golden in color. So it
Mm.
looks beautiful. And then I have also been very, very lucky to have witnessed moonrise right from the backside of Chandrashila. So I have
Wow.
seen the moon rising from right from the back of Chandrashila from Sari, and it looks stunning. It's so wonderful, and it was also the full moon. So
Wow.
we have had the best views. So Sari is a very nice, tiny, very, very beautiful village with all these farms, and there's one small temple also. So in the evening you can go to the temple. Uh, Also all of that, and with this view of Chandrashila. Next day, when you actually start the trek, you start from Sari and then you go to Deoretal. So this is quite a short of a hike, but a little bit steep, I would say. But if you go in spring season, you actually start witnessing the rhododendrons. So rhododendrons are flowers, and they are found in different colors. So on this particular patch, you get to see all the red rhododendrons. So all the trees are bloomed with red rhododendrons, and it's as if like you're walking in a small pathway filled with red flowers. So it's beautiful. So you start from Sari and then you venture onto the backside of the mountain, and then you start walking, you start trekking, and then after say 50 minutes of trekking, you reach Rupini Bugyal. So the place is called Rupini Bugyal. And when you reach there, you just have to turn back, and then you see massive Chaukhamba. The Chaukhamba massive right in front of you.
Mhm.
And if the weather is clear, you see it so up close that you wouldn't believe that you were not able to see it from Sari, and now it is so close to you. Chaukhamba is a wonderful sight to have. And this is just the beginning of all of it. Okay. So
Mhm.
here from Ropini Bugyal, you get the first view of Chaukhamba. You also get to see the other side of the mountain. So there are a lot of villages, and you are basically, because Ropini Bugyal is sort of on a top of, or say on the mid part of that mountain. So from here you get to see the valley side, and the other side you get to see Chaukhamba.
Mhm.
And Chaukhamba has a very peculiar shape. like, of course, all the mountains have and all the peaks have, but Chaukhamba is a massive. So it's made of 4 different peaks, but all of them together. That is what is called a massive. So Chaukhamba is a massive, and it's a wonderful sight to have. And that is when you start, when you continue on that trail, and eventually in the next 30 minutes or so, or even less than that, you reach a ground where the trail just opens up. And as a surprise, you get to see Deuriya Tal. So Tal is lake, so Deuriya Tal. So you get to see Deuriya Tal right in front of you, and Chaukhamba right behind Deuriya Tal. And the Deuriya Tal is surrounded by quite dense forest trees, and that is also bloomed with rhododendrons. And it's a wonderful, wonderful sight to have. So once you reach the campsite of Deuriya Tal. So Deuriya Tal is our first campsite. So right behind the lake, you go and you reach the campsite, and then you have lunch and everything. And the evening, you come back to Deuriya Tal, and then you can take a walk around the lake. So complete walk around the lake, and that is a very nice thing to do. Most of the times we don't have enough time to do all of that, but you can surely at least go till half of. You can actually venture half of the round, and then you come back to the Deuriya Tal Lake, and over there is this watchtower, and you climb that watchtower and you get to see beautiful sunset. So you get to see sunset, and then Chaukhamba, and then Tal, everything at one place. And then there are so many birds because the forest is quite dense and there are so many trees. There are lots of birds. So many birds chirping, especially during the sunset. So it's a very beautiful evening that you can have. So you can actually carry your snacks over there and have your snacks while enjoying all of this. And then when you get back to your campsite, many people miss this part, but you have to come back to Deuriya Tal in the night after your dinner.
Okay.
Because that is when you come back, you get to see, if you're lucky and if the weather is clear, when you come back to Deuriya Tal, and if you go close to the water and you look in the lake, you will see that the lake is filled with stars, because all the stars, they have this reflection in the lake. And I have been there, and it felt as if there is this different world under the lake. And you can actually, there is I was very tempted to just walk in and enter that world, that altogether different world. So you will see numerous stars just reflecting on the Deuriya Tal, and the lake, basically a lake filled with stars. And it is such a beautiful sight. Oh my God, I can't explain. One has to experience it. Then only they will know what it feels like. So it's beautiful. That again is a wonderful sight. So you basically go to Deuriya Tal. Once you go, when you're on the trek, then you come back during your sunset. Then you come back after dinner, and then in the morning, next day morning, early morning, you have to come back to Deuriya Tal and see the reflection of Chaukhamba in the lake. Because with early hours, early golden hours, when the sun is rising, you will see the reflection of Chaukhamba in the lake. And I have a picture where you would not know where the line is, because you see Chaukhamba in front of you and then other Chaukhamba in reverse manner in the lake. So,
Wow.
and I think that picture is also there on the website, but you have to see it for real. Um, so it's wonderful. I mean, what else do you want to would one want to witness on the very first day of the trek? So that is what Deuriya Tal offers. Then next day you have to walk from Deuriya Tal to Shalmi. It's one of the longest hike of this entire trek. And that also is one of my favorite parts of the trek. The most favorite part is third day, but this is also very beautiful, where you actually walk through dense forest. And then you're climbing up, you're climbing down. So once you climb up, you have to you reach this Jhandi top, from where you are actually at the top, and you can see a 360-degree view. You are on the top. Down there, you see Sari. On the other side, you see other villages. Then you're basically on a ridge top. And then from there, you get to see Chandrashila, Chaukhamba, every mountain that is around. And then that is where you also see a lot of Himalayan vultures, because they are almost flying at that height at where you are standing, or sometimes even above that. So you see many Himalayan vultures, and they are huge. They are huge birds, and you get to see see them very up close from that particular place. And then from there, you continue walking. You go through the dense jungle, and by the evening, you reach Sialmi just before crossing Rohini Bugyal. Now, this Bugyal is famous for rhododendron flowers because when the flowers are blooming in that particular season, you will see. So, Bugyal is what? Bugyal is a meadow. So, this Rohini Bugyal is a place which is which gets entirely covered with red flowers. So once you enter, you will see a big meadow covered with red flowers, and then you have to walk through it and then across that meadow, and then reach to the other side and then go to Sialmi. So Sialmi is the next campsite, and that also is very, very beautiful. You are on one side of the mountain, which is a slope, and from there again, if you go to the other mountain, you see this beautiful sunset happening. So here there are actually very few restrictions. At Deoria Tal, your campsite is quite close and you can't really see what is around unless you go to Deoria Tal itself. But Sialmi is quite open. So the night sky from Sialmi is beautiful because you can almost see the entire sky from there. It is not restricted. You can see the full sky in the night. And then next day from Sialmi to Baniakund is my personal favorite. It's very, 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 very pretty. You walk down from Sialmi to this river called as Akash Kamini. And Akash Kamini is it's such a serene spot to just go and sit silently without talking to anybody and then dip your feet in the water. The water is very, very cold. So you might have those tingling sensations once you dip your feet in. But you just stay there, sit there silent, and just you can just look around because it is all filled with dense forest. So there is this dense, it's like this picture perfect moment where there's this jungle, dense forest, and from there is this beautiful stream coming down. It's not a big river, but it's also not very tiny. So it's of this perfect size where this beautiful river is flowing with all its curves, and then on one side you can just sit and relax and look around and enjoy the scenery. Sometimes even close your eyes and just relax, lie down and relax, or even drink the water from the stream. It's very, very tasty. Whenever anybody goes to Himalayan treks, they must drink water directly from the stream or just fill that water. It's very tasty. So you do that, and then the real climb starts. So from Sialmi, you have to climb down, reach the river, and then from there you have to again start climbing up. You basically lose the height and then you gain the height again. And then that part is again very, very beautiful. It feels as if you're walking in those it's not a usual forest. It's not where the trail is quite laid out and the trees are far apart. Even though, because in other treks, whenever we go, we see that there's this dense forest around and then you have to walk through it. But most of the times the forest is not so dense that like the way we imagine, right? This forest feels much more wild because you have to actually, push the leaves and push the branches, and then you have to go. You sometimes on few barks of the trees, you actually see this bears and nails that are sort of imprinted because they have to sometimes when they clean their nails they do this on the bark, and then you see that nishan of their nails on the bark. So the trees are beautiful. There are trees which have such huge leaves and flowers. So it's a beautiful, very wild experience that you will ever have of walking in a jungle or a dense forest. So that is something that you get, and then you reach Baniakund. So Baniakund is your last campsite, and the final day is when you actually reach the summit. So Baniakund itself is a very beautiful campsite. Over there, you see rhododendrons, not just red, but also pink colored rhododendrons. So rhododendrons, the beautiful fact about them is that as and when you gain altitude, you will see a change in color of the flowers. So at the lower levels, you will see them red, then pink, and then white, sometimes even violet in between. So as and when you move up, you see it changing from red to white. You see pink and red rhododendrons around Banyakund campsite, which is also a very, very beautiful site. Next day, you start for your climb. So from Banyakund, you have to start. So it depends on which season you are actually going in, but most of the times you start quite early in the morning. So you most of the times you start, or sometimes even middle of the night. I have started at even 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night. So it's a night trek. You start from Banyakund and then you have to reach Chandrashila. It's quite a long trek. It takes about 5 hours to reach the top. But if you want to witness the sunrise, then you have to start early. So once you start, you have no idea where you're going. You're just following the footsteps of the person who is in front of you. And it's actually a good thing to not know how far you're going, because it's quite a long trek. In that time when it is so dark, you actually cover most of the distance. But while you do that, do take moments to just look up in the sky, because you will see the sky filled with stars. And then when you actually cover, say, first 5-10% of Chandrashila trek, you actually start climbing towards Tunganath and then Chandrashila. On the other side, you will see these villages, and over there also you will see the lights are turned on during the night. So you will see stars above and stars below.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a wonderful feeling. You don't know where the line is. So
Uh-huh.
you don't know where the sky is ending or where the villages lights are ending. So that also is a wonderful sight. And then eventually you just have to keep climbing. There comes this point called something Dev. I don't remember the name of that particular spot, but from there, if you reach there on time, you get to see beautiful morning colors. I remember seeing purple, orange, red, all these colors in the sky as if somebody had painted the sky. And then you see Chaukhamba right next to it, and then you have the sun rising from the other side and the colors changing. So you basically get distracted from all the pain or all the tiredness that you have while trekking just by seeing these colors of the sky. And then that is the patch where you actually get to see a lot of monals. So that part is famous for sighting Himalayan monals. So monals are these birds which have, I believe they have even more colors than a peacock, and they are very, very colorful. And then when they fly, you get to see all of those colors. That is also a wonderful thing to witness. And then you keep climbing, and eventually you reach Tunganath while you're witnessing these beautiful, ever-changing sky and the colors. You reach Tunganath. If you are going in a season when the temple is open, you can actually go inside and seek blessings. But otherwise, you can just continue. And that last part becomes quite challenging because you're already tired and there's just 1 kilometer of trek left, but you see Chandrashila quite high up there and you wouldn't believe that it's just 1 kilometer. It feels much more than that. So the sun usually rises from the other side of Chandrashila. So here you get to see all the rest of the part. And then you just have to look down and keep walking, because there is no other way. A lot of people get extremely tired and want to give up on that last part. But if they do, then they miss out on what they get to see from the summit. So you just have to keep pushing yourself. Sometimes it even takes half an hour. But once you reach the top, oh my God, the view from there is mesmerizing. You get to see every single thing that is out there. If you have clear weather, you get to see this 360-degree view. So everything that is around, all the mountains that are around, you even get to see Nanda Gunti. I'm not sure if you get to see Nanda Devi, but Nanda Gunti for sure, and I think Nanda Devi also. I might be wrong. I'm sorry, but so this full Lohajang range. Lohajang is again a place from where our treks start. The mountains that you get to see from Lohajang, it's the Lohajang range. So Lohajang range of mountains, and then here on the other side, you of course have Chaukhamba and all the other peaks. So all Himalayan peaks right in front of you, and the sun rising from there. And then you even get to see the first rays of sun hitting Chaukhamba and Nanda Devi, Nanda Gunti, all those mountains, and it just turns golden. And you are also freezing most of the times. It's quite cold up there on the summit, and it's windy. And then you also have that first rays of mountains falling on your face, and that feels heavenly. And once you reach there and once you experience all of that, it feels all worth it. All the efforts that you have put to be there, it all feels worth it. So I'm sure that whoever goes on that trek spends at least 5-10 minutes minimum of that, not speaking to anyone, sitting silently on a rock and just looking at the view and trying to soak all of it in, because you can't stay for a long time on the summit. You have to start coming back. So yeah, I think that is it. After that, you just come back to Sari, and that is where the trek ends. But I think I missed out on a very important part, on especially from Banyakun to Chandrashila, because especially when you come back. So while going to, you will never know what is around you, but when you're coming back, because the sun has risen and then there's light everywhere, you can see the path that you come from.
Oh.
I remember seeing all these rhododendrons bloomed.
Oh.
So when we start from Chandrashila, now we are coming back, right? So the first flower that you see is all the white rhododendrons.
Wow.
And then on the slope of the mountains, you actually see the change in the gradient of the color. So you get to see all of the shades right at one point. And from that one place, you get to see all those shades. And then you have to walk through all of them. And you see the color changing. And there are parts of that trail where, as if somebody has laid petals of rhododendrons for you to walk on. It feels like that. There are so many flowers bloomed, and all the flowers are fallen on the trail, and you have to walk through them. So it's literally like a canopy of red flowers and you walking through the red flowers. So again, it's a very beautiful sight. So you basically walk from the white and then violet, then pink, and eventually red rhododendrons. And then you will not know when you come back and actually reach the base of Chandrashila. So even though the coming back part is quite tiring, but these flowers and everything make you very distracted and you will never know. So yeah, I think that is the Oratal Chandrashila for me. It's very, very beautiful.
The way you were describing it, it felt like a place in a fairy tale where there are a lot of colors, there's stars, there's a lake, there's a mountain. It absolutely felt like a place from a fairy tale.
I know, right? Everybody must go there and experience it.
Hmm. I will definitely have that in my list.
Yes,
So
yes.
as I'm recording more and more episodes, the list is bigger. I will definitely have this one as well.
Yeah.
I read particularly one trek that is the adventure therapy trek that you were a trek leader on that trek. So can you describe what that trek is and how is it different, or in general what comes out of that trek?
All these so we call these as special treks, which have a very specific outcome or very specific objective linked to it. So we have many of these special treks. Like like I mentioned about family treks, we also have summer camps for children. So uh, children as young as 8 years old, they come to the Himalayas all by themselves without their parents, and they stay there and do the trek for 10 days and then they go back. So we have summer camps for children, for teenagers, also toddlers, both. And then we also have special treks such as stargazing trek. So we have an expert who facilitates the entire trek, and every night the trekkers witness or experience stargazing and they learn more about stargazing. We have bird watching special treks. So I think most of the bird watching special treks are done on the Orital Chandrashila because you get to see so many different birds. So the tech leader or whoever the facilitator is coming with you, they are the expert in that area. So we have a lot of these special treks. Now, adventure therapy is a trek for people who are possibly dealing with a trauma or dealing with some mental um, problems that are inhibiting them from being their best. And they have observed, or they have witnessed, they have noticed these things about themselves, and they want to change it. They want to overcome those barriers, mental barriers or traumas that they have. Doing all of that through an adventure is adventure therapy. So you go on a trek, and that is where you deal with all of these things, and you come out stronger, much and a better version of yourself. So as a trek leader, I was responsible to basically do everything that a trek leader does on any other trek. But we also had a counselor coming on the trek. So
Okay.
we had Izzat ma'am coming. She is the head of experiential learning at India Hike. So all these special programs that we are talking about, experiential, they come under experiential learning division. So under that, we have all these special treks. Izzat ma'am was coming as a counselor, and she was basically the therapist. So every day we would schedule one-on-one sessions with her, whoever wanted it, of course. So we would have these special sessions with her on the trek. There might be once we reach campsite, or sometimes even while we are trekking on the trail, they would have one-on-one conversations. And so the entire trek was designed in a way to bring out these things. Um, so we had inculcated a lot of activities and a lot of reflection sessions where people would be speaking about all of this, or trying to deal with all of this, and eventually come out of all of this. So we would have a lot of group sessions where we would do a certain activities. Having that safe space where everybody is coming with that purpose to overcome their mental barriers and their mental challenges, that itself creates a very different environment. So doing all of that, we eventually do the entire trek just like everybody does. So the route is same, the trek is same, but the way we conduct it, that is very different. So that is speciality about adventure therapy, and I think it is something that is very much needed right now at this point of time, when depression has become so common, and very few people are and a lot of people are really struggling with dealing with their mental health. And this is where it becomes easier, because here on a trek, even when a normal person comes on a trek, it is a place where they are putting them out of their comfort zone, right? So tomorrow, if anybody goes on a trek, after a point, he or she will be thrown out of their comfort zone, be it extreme weather conditions, or be it walking for long hours. At some point of the time, they will feel that, you know what, bus ho gaya, abhi I can't do it anymore. But at that point also, they have to continue, and they have to keep doing it. And that eventually they realize that, oh, they can do much more than what they thought they could. So this sort of feeling comes very naturally on a trek. So why not use that, and use that in adventure therapy itself? Because a lot of people who are struggling in terms of mental health, they are struggling with exactly this thing about uh, overcoming their barriers, overcoming their limitations, or overcoming the traumas that they have had in the past. So why not mix that up with adventure, where in terms of physical level, you are actually crossing your boundaries, and then in your mental level, on your mental level also, you try to do the same. So it's something that is quite famous in abroad. A lot of adventure therapies are famous, but here in India, we don't have many. So it is something that uh, India Hikes wants to make it big, and have much more treks around the same concept. So it was a very beautiful thing to be part of it and see so many people transform just in the matter of 4 days. So wonderful experience for that as well.
It is really interesting. The concept itself is so interesting. And as you said, the feeling you get on a trek is already there, and you can capitalize on that if you have a professional person who knows about mental health. Because the feeling you mentioned, I remember on the Rupin Pass trek, on the last day, where it's almost 80 degrees steep, and it's a long route, and you have to climb. I can exactly recollect the feeling where I couldn't see anything. I just had one goal, that I have to take the next step. And I think that is
Exactly.
what is the mental health or meditation teaches you, that be in the present or be in the moment. And that's what was happening to me, that okay, this is the next step. And then after that, what I do, I take the next step, and then the next.
Yeah.
And that was the, I think that is the meditative state you go into when you are doing this adventure activities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, as you rightly said, there are so many parallels that you can actually draw in terms of what happens in your life and what happens on a trek, right? So, like you spoke about that one step, that is exactly what you do in your life. Or even when you go up and then you know that you have to go down, or when you're going down on a trek, you know that there is one slope that is coming where you have to climb up now. मतलब तभी के लिए you will feel very happy कि oh now we are descending and everything, but back of the mind you know अभी फिर से चढ़ना पड़ेगा.
Mm.
So it's the same thing even in our life,
Mm.
right? So there are so many parallels that you can actually draw when it comes to the lessons that your life teaches and the lessons that even trekking teaches. And this is something that even I realized when I started trekking, and that is why I wanted to transfer it to other people.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
You have mentioned your mother so many times, and she's been a constant support and a very strong part of all your journey. So, is she also in the outdoors? I think she'll also. Can you talk about a little bit about her?
Oh, sure. So, not just her, even my father, both of them, they are trekkers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So even before, so during their college days, they would go on treks. And
Wow.
then when me and my sister were young, they of course took us also on treks. So they have been trekkers for longer duration than I have been. And they, in fact, it was my mother who introduced all of us as family to India Hikes, because she was searching for good organizations to go out on a trek
Mhm.
to Himalayas. And we had gone with multiple organizations based out of Pune, some from Himachal and whatever, but we did not really resonate with many of them. And we were looking for that one perfect organization uh, which we could trust. And then she looked for India Hikes, and then she came across India Hikes, and then she went on a trek with India Hikes for the very first time in our family. She was the first one to go on a trek.
Wow.
So she went with India Hikes first, and then she came back and she was fully impressed with India Hikes and the people at India Hikes and everything about it. So then next time, me and my dad went for a trek with India Hikes. So that is how it started. So in fact, she's the one who introduced me to all of this. And of course, my father. So both of them. So both of them have been the biggest pillar or the biggest support that I could ever ask for, because leaving such a stable job here in Pune and then taking on something so dynamic and so uncertain, you can even view it as risky, but others view it as adventurous, whatever you want to view it as. But it's not easy. It's not easy to do that, and it's not easy for them as parents to let their child do all of this. And in their initial years of 20s, when my other friends were doing their masters or they were continuing their job here, so this was a very unconventional path that I was choosing, but that is where I needed the most of their support. I even remember a day when I said that, you know what, I'm just thinking too much about this, and I don't think that I am capable of doing all of this. I'll better not do it. I'll just continue my job here. I'll find a place where I want to do my masters and do it in all conventional way. But in fact, it was them who said that, you know what, this is the age. If you want to do all of these things, if you want to explore, we don't want you to think at your age, at the age of 40, when you turn 40, to think that I had this chance and I did not go for it. So we want you to go and explore. This is your age to take all sorts of risks that you can. We are here to support you in every way possible. So it was actually them who pushed me to do all of this. and I'm very very grateful for having them, because I know for a fact, I know so many people at India Hikes who have to fight at their homes with their families to be doing what they are doing. And I think I'm one of those lucky ones who just got it all right.
That's really great. That concludes part 1 of Swarada's chapter from Himalayan Diaries. As she reminded us, embrace life without regrets and seize the opportunities to pursue what you love. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll continue unboxing stories from Swarada's Himalayan Diary. Thanks for joining us on Himalayan Diaries from Unboxing Stories. I'm your host Ojas. Together with Shivam Hasurkar, we are the creators of Unboxing Stories. Remember, every step in the mountains tells a story, and we are here to bring them to you. If you are inspired to start your own trekking adventure, please remember that these are not just leisure activities, but true adventure sports. It's crucial to learn, prepare, and take all necessary safety measures before embarking on your journey. Your safety is as important as your adventure. If you have enjoyed this episode, do share it with your friends and family. Please make sure to follow us and leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Tune in next time as we continue to unbox more stories from the Himalayan Diaries. Until then, keep moving forward.